Hello, hello! If you haven't already realized, this is your last module related to professional dispatching skills. You are at the finish line. There's one last push left before we move on to the modules related to monetizing your knowledge. Very soon you will be applying for jobs or looking for customers, selling your professional services and earning well-deserved income with your newly acquired skills. I'm excited for you. But before we get to that, we have one more crucial topic to cover. The name of this module doesn't sound so pleasant. It's associated with conflicts and problems, but it's this module that will free you from a lot of stress and help you find the best way out of seemingly difficult situations at work. In my business, I constantly strive to build a system out of everything. To break down complex problems and tasks into multiple small processes and come up with clear, step-by-step solutions. That's how we approach problem solving and conflict resolution in my team. Therefore, each new employee we hire first studies the theory, delves into the generally accepted steps of effective problem solving, and only then moves on to practical examples and tasks. With this approach, even when faced with a rare problem, a dispatcher doesn't begin to panic. He or she acts accordingly to a familiar set of practices and easily finds a way out of any situation. You and I will follow the same path. In this lesson, we will start with common concepts and theory, and in the next one we'll focus on real examples. Let's go! So, problem solving is one of the greatest skills, not only for a dispatcher, but for any successful business professional. Problem solving involves two very different, perhaps even contradictory thought processes: creativity and decisiveness. The first part, creativity, is about generating options and possible solutions, and the second part, decisiveness, is about choosing the best one. We will now break down the problem-solving process into three key steps: identifying the real issue, generating possible solutions, selecting and implementing the optimal solution. So, step 1, identifying the real issue. This step, which is often overlooked, revolves around the idea that you have to correctly identify the causes of any problem. Sometimes the cause of the problem can be much more complex than what's visible on the surface, and you need to get to the root of it. There's a technique for this known as the 5 whys. The idea is that you ask the question why up to 5 times, until you get to the real root of the problem. Here's an example from a recent recording I listened to of a conversation between one of my dispatchers and his driver. So the situation went like this. The driver didn't arrive in time to pick up a load at 6 a.m. and didn't answer his phone until lunchtime. The dispatcher finally managed to connect with the driver and the conversation went like this. So the dispatcher picks up the phone and goes, "Alejandro, I'm not calling you to scold you. Let's just have a chat. Tell me, why didn't you come to the pickup?" The driver responds, "Everything is fine. No one will die because I didn't pick up a load. I had stomach problems and I've been sitting on the toilet all day long. I'll pick it up tomorrow first thing." The dispatcher goes, "No problem. I'll solve the issue with the broker, but I'm worried about you. Tell me, why didn't you pick up the phone? What happened?" Driver says, "I'm just sick of this. I can't miss a pickup once in a lifetime. It's not the end of the world." The dispatcher answers, "Okay, but why? I feel there's more to it. Talk to me." The driver goes, "I've been driving for 3 straight months. I sleep in this truck, I eat in this truck, I don't even remember what my daughter looks like." Dispatcher answers, "Okay, why don't you finish this load and then go home?" The driver goes, "Listen, I need to finish this month in order to get my quarterly bonus. Otherwise, all this work will not pay off. My daughter, Juanita, is going to private school now. I need the money." So, at this point, dispatcher, having already understood the essence of the problem, says, "Okay, let me talk to the boss. If I can negotiate something good for you, do you promise me you'll take some time off?" And at this point, the driver, already answering in a calmer voice, just goes, "We'll see." And the conversation ended there. So, what do you think happened next? The dispatcher called the owner of the company and made it clear that the driver was burned out and he urgently needed a vacation. Then the owner, the CEO of the company, gave the driver some paid time off and decided to pay him the bonus he deserved even though he didn't finish the month. I don't know if you noticed, but during this conversation the dispatcher asked the question why 4 times and only then understood how to solve the problem. A bad manager finds it easier to fix a problem superficially, rather than digging deeper and finding out if it's something more serious. But in order to solve a problem, you need to get to its root, because otherwise it will keep happening again and again. A big name in the world of problem-solving experts is Vilfredo Pareto. I believe many of you have heard about the 80-20 principle, also known as the Pareto principle, which began with the observation that 80% of the land in Italy belonged to 20% of the people. This 80-20 rule also applies to the logistics industry. For example, according to statistics, 80% of time spent working, dispatchers use to load 20% of their truck. And 80% of all your problems will usually come from 20% of underlying reasons. In other words, there are only a few underlying causes that create most of your problems. But how can we use this knowledge? If you focus on fixing just 20% of your problems, you will save 80% of the cost and 80% of your time and money. This principle is best applied to solving more complex problems rather than for one-time simple cases. For example, when I was an independent dispatcher, at some point I had too much work and realized that I could no longer cope. Because of this, the quality of my work began to suffer and I began to make mistakes. I then sat down and started looking for a solution. I analyzed my earnings over the past months and realized that out of all my clients, I had 3 who brought me the majority of my income, and I spent a minimum amount of time loading them. Also, I found out that I had some clients whom I spent a lot of time loading, but earned very little from them. They constantly refused all my loads and I spent my whole day trying to find a load that will satisfy their needs. As a result, they end up taking their own loads and I don't charge them for that, so I don't get paid. Having carefully thought about everything, I dropped some of my clients and began to devote my free time to training one of my good friends, who eventually became a key player in starting my dispatching company. So, whenever you're faced with a complex problem or even multiple problems that you cannot solve all at once, try to break them apart into manageable pieces and identify those which have the greatest impact on your business. Perhaps by eliminating or changing just one small detail, you'll be able to manage most of the consequences arising from it. Our second step in problem solving is generating possible solutions. The most well-known and effective process of generating ideas is brainstorming. The method of brainstorming is basically just generating a maximum number of ideas for solving a problem, including the most wild and crazy ideas you may have. One thing I can say about brainstorming sessions is that they are extremely effective for both a team and for a sole professional. But most people conduct brainstorming sessions incorrectly. Instead of writing down a big list of ideas as they emerge, people begin to evaluate and pick at every idea that is thrown into the list. The correct way to do it is to create a list and then move on to evaluate every idea. It's just human nature to evaluate every idea as it comes up, but it's key to resist this temptation. Write down each idea on a list, no matter the craziness of it. The reason this works is because our brains are set to automatically jump from a stupid idea to an ingenious one by elimination. Writing down one idea that seems completely crazy will make your brain think of its opposite, which can likely lead to finding a solution. The second tool that I always go through with my coworkers is called mind maps. There's something about them that seems natural to the human brain, and they help me think. They work much better than regular lists. This is what a mind map looks like. And the best thing about them is that they actually reflect the way we think. They make a problem visual. They involve both the left and the right side of the brain. They're quick to draw and you can add any elements in any order as soon as they come to mind. Also, because the diagram starts in the middle, as you expand it, there's always room for additional bubbles. There are special applications and programs that help you draw a mind map, but I would recommend you to simply do it by hand, on paper. A step further from the mind map is a decision tree. The essence of a decision tree is that it contains a time axis. Unlike mind maps, decision trees represent a sequence of possible events, like the unfolding of a chess game. If we do one action, move one piece, then 3 possible scenarios can happen. In the first scenario happens, then we can do either A or B. And if we choose option A, the 2 more options can occur, and so on. It all grows into a big tree. This tool is especially effective when you have multiple possible solutions to a problem, but you can't decide which one will lead to the best result. Some dispatchers in my company even use this method when they plan the route of their drivers. I highly recommend giving it a try. Believe me, I'm not just talking about these tools for the sake of appearing clever or giving you extra homework. There's a direct correlation between the incorporation of these tools into the workflow and the effectiveness of problem solving. Here's a real-life scenario for you. A dispatcher comes to my office and says, I have a problem, I don't know what to do. I haven't even heard of his problem yet. I just say, go make a decision tree, and then come back and we can discuss it. And guess what? The dispatcher never comes back. He finds the solution himself. Well, at work, it's impossible for everything to go according to plan, and in order to be good at your job, you need to be able to solve problems effectively. Moving on to the third stage, selecting and implementing the optimal solution. Selecting the right solution is obviously a key step in solving any problem. For this stage, unfortunately, there are no magical tools. The whole idea is that the previous 2 stages, given that they're performed well, will lead you to a well-balanced solution to get the desired result. The only thing I can suggest at this stage is to go over your final decision with the 5 key questions. For example, let's imagine I decided to cancel a newly booked load because I unexpectedly received a call from a different broker who offered a better paying load. Before taking this decision, I'll check myself by asking these questions. First one. Will my decision satisfy all parties involved in the conflict? Well, in principle, yes. The broker with whom I cancelled the shipment certainly will not be happy, but since I just booked it, there's still plenty of time before the load needs to be picked up. I can just apologize, tell the broker that the driver is not ready, or that the truck has already been booked by another dispatcher, and that I called him the second I found out about it. Number 2, can it be implemented within an acceptable time frame? Well, yes, I can do it right now because I just booked the load. If there was little time left before the pickup, I would have let the broker down and he could have blacklisted me and decided never to work with me again. Number 3. Is it cost-effective, reliable and realistic? Well, yes, because I will earn more money for my company and a higher commission for myself. It sounds about right. Next one. Is the result comparable to the possible risks? I believe so. The only serious risk I identified was that the broker could possibly get mad at me. But once again, since the load had just been booked, I assess this risk as minimal and consider my decision appropriate. And finally, is the decision comparable to the principles of my professional ethics? Well, I do not support dispatchers and brokers who cancel loads at the last moment. I mean, it's totally wrong and unprofessional. At the same time, canceling a load within the first, say, 30 minutes of booking, taking into account that the other party has enough time to find a replacement, I consider that acceptable. Perhaps someone will condemn me, but in my opinion, the market itself dictates such rules of the game. There you go! I've double-checked my decision with the 5 key questions methodology, I discarded all possible doubts, and I'm ready to confidently proceed to implementation. Alright, I hope I didn't torture you too much with the theory. It's important to me that you understand these basics so that your brain begins to think in the right direction. I recommend not to take a long break and immediately proceed to the next lesson. so that practical knowledge from lesson 2 is combined with the theory of lesson 1. I'll see you in the next one.